Kale is going to present a treat on his work on object-based imagery analysis for mapping the Alpine Tundra at Mount Mansfield. So the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so for folks on that, I'm a student at Penn State, part of the Master of Geographic Information. Specifically, I'm focusing on remote sensing. I'm originally from Southern Vermont, so I wanted to make sure the project had something to do with Vermont. So, love mountains, problem I'm trying to solve is trying to map the Alpine Tundra on a more granular scale than what you can see before. So, please stop and interrupt me for questions as we go along. The presentation is about 35 minutes plus or minus, but I don't hold your questions to the end. Next slide. All right, so basically, we're running through the project start to finish, starting from the problem I was trying to solve, the data and workflows I use, data analysis, and hopefully the most important part of the results. Excellent. So specifically, the problem I was trying to solve is that national level data sets that are pixel-based and coarser resolutions, they don't really capture the complexity of the Tundra features, more complex, the size, shape, or spatial arrangement of the features on Mount Mansfield. And so specifically what I did was to use object-based image analysis, OBIA, instead of analyzing individual pixels, you analyze groups of pixels called objects and classify them based on the land cover. And the goal is to make it usable for local scales, New England, Vermont, statewide instead of county or countrywide. They're trying to make more granular vector shaped files instead of just raster, coarser raster. Next slide. So a couple of the impacts. One, it creates a baseline land cover map on a much more granular scale. It is hopefully, my hope is it's usable by folks here in Vermont and New England. But it's also much more cost and schedule efficient as opposed to I didn't collect any new data for this. I analyzed data that was already existing. Didn't have to collect any new points for it. And it was all done within existing GIS software. So as opposed to trying to do field work and extrapolate based on field work, it's more comprehensive based on existing data. And just a couple of the applications. For one, estimating the actual physical area of the Alpine Tundra and comparing that to historical estimates, as well as creating that more granular baseline for change detection. And the real crux of it, my hope was to whether you're just downloading, reviewing, and looking at it, but actually being able to use it in some kind of future GIS or census study, statewide or from county level. No, that was the main focus. Next slide. Next. As far as background, the image on the left, I don't have to explain to you guys, this audience, where Mount Mansfield is in Vermont, but the middle one here, identifying highlighting both Chittenden and Weld County, is one of the most important ones here because Mount Mansfield, most of Mount Mansfield is in Chittenden County, but the forehead lies in Weld County. And this was a forcing function for me for what imagery and elevation data I was able to download. So that'll come back later. It wasn't anything showstopping, but it'll come back a little bit later. And then on the far right is the 2014 native image of Mount Mansfield. And so basically the study area I was looking at is Maple Ridge Trail on the top, Sunset Ridge Trail on the top, Maple Ridge Trail on the bottom, and then a long trail going through the forehead to the Adam's apple. So and everything in that rectangle I'm trying to extract the features along the ridges. Next slide. So I mentioned national level data sets, NLCD, which is the National Land Cover Database, 30-meter pixel-based land cover data. It's for the entire country. And they do it, I believe, at 5-year intervals now. The 2016 data just came out recently. On the left here is 2016 native data with my study area in that red rectangle. The 2011 NLCD data is on the right. And just fully zoomed out, and then the far right is the legend see data classes. Fully zoomed out, you can see the NLCD does a good job of capturing the existence of Mount Mansfield. It captures the overall shape. But as you zoom in, it's like this is the northern half of the mountain. You can start to see the granularity of the pixels showing up, the rigidness of those square pixels. It still does capture a good job of the curvature going from the long trail down Sunset Ridge. If you zoom in further, next slide, you can start to see, really start to see the pixels, the square pixels, and it really doesn't capture the size, shape, or spatial arrangement. And if I had zoomed in even further, there's no further slide, but the whole slide could be tan and wouldn't capture any of the complexity. So my goal was to set this pixel-based to come up with some vector-based, object-based land cover map that better parallel and replicate what you see on the map. So that was really the straightforward goal, not necessarily straightforward analysis. the straightforward goal to improve upon the granularity of the land cover. So specifically, what's featured about the image here on the left was taken end of July 2017, probably 8 to 10 in the morning, looking near the channel of the north-northwest. Taken by UAV. The area I've zoomed in at is the intersection, right around the intersection of Sunset Bridge and Walk Trail. And the three features on the right that I highlighted were the three features that I was trying to come up with a map in these three classes. So bare rock being the bare exposed rock faces. Alpine vegetation being everything that's not evergreens, the grasses, flowers, the alpine meadows, and then the subalpine crumbles, stunted forests and industries on top of them. And so my goal is to come out with a map and the whole across this analysis. We're trying to figure out what are the differences. How do I map, identify, and delineate these three features to come out with a map that tells you where those, all three of those classes are. Next slide. So in addition to the three classes I was interested in, they're not the only features on the mountain. Buildings, TV towers, gravel construction road going after the house, parking lot, the auto road, non-alpine citrus trees, as well as the citrus trees, ski trails, and any cars in the parking lot going to the auto road. But to make my life easier in the analysis, anything that was not my three features of interest, I put in a category called other. And so I didn't try to delineate buildings from TV towers, ski trails from cars, everything broke into a class called other, so I can focus on the rock, the vegetation, and components. Next slide. So as far as the workflow, I call it a relatively standard remote sensing workflow. And that it started with data acquisition. As I mentioned, I didn't acquire any new data myself, but so the data acquisition for this included downloading imagery and elevation files, data pre-processing, working with the data to get it ready for whatever analysis I was doing, including mosaic and tiles together, projecting to enable the three-state plan remote coordinate system, and then flipping to the red boundary that I showed a couple slides ago into the site area. As far as band combinations, the most useful for me, and I'll mention this throughout, was the NDVI normalized difference distribution index, relative measure of photosynthetic activity, which is really a critical delineator between these three features. Derivatives, so digital elevation model derivatives, which is slope, aspect, contour, and shape. Most useful for me, which I did use in this analysis, was slope to delineate some of the features. As far as data processing, as I mentioned, this was object-based image analysis, all done in package development software. And the idea is to take their imagery, instead of analyzing individual pixels, we break their image up into groups of pixels called objects, which is called segmentation. You assign the groups of pixels to different land cover classes based on various characteristics of the objects themselves, or characteristics from the layers of the input, such as the slope and maturity on various layers. You do this iteratively enough until all the features you're interested in are classified, and you can export it as a shapefile, for a tangible delivery to the site. And so then I also computed a standard accuracy assessment, which you'd say create reference points to compare your map to a browser truth map to see relatively how well you did it. It's hard to take the numbers as universal for the entire map, which I'll get into, but always good to get a rough estimate of whether you're on track. And then the bottom of the three software use ArcMap, eTechnician Developer, and ArcPro for all of this. So the data sets, as I mentioned, everything was already there. So I downloaded everything from the portal. The only exception is I did use to create my slope layers. I did use the ArcPro function, slope function on down visual elevation model. I did download. So with the exception of that, everything is downloaded already existing from the portal. So as far as imagery, the three here, they're in order of preference from left to right. So the Eastern Chittenden County imagery on the left here from 2013, the acquisition date was May 2nd, 20 centimeter data, so very high res, which is excellent for the purpose of this analysis. One thing to note, I'm calling a leaf off in that the alpine vegetation on top of the mountain is still brown. It may be leaf on at the lower elevations, but for my purposes, this imagery is perfect because during the midsummer, the alpine vegetation starts to green over, it's really hard to delineate based on just origin tone between the sub-outline points. So this changing imagery was a great find for me. The only problem is you can see some of the shadow in this little snippet. You can see some of the shadows. There's also some snow because there's still early May, still some snow on top of Mansfield. And what you can't see is I alluded to earlier, with Chittenden and Waterloo County. This imagery data set only covers Chittenden County. So there's a little section in the forehead on Mansfield where it's just missing data, blank data. And so because of the shadows and the snow in the section missing data, I had to use at least one other data set in order to rectify those features. So this middle data set on northwestern Vermont, which covers the top third, roughly the top third of the state. Also from 2013, the acquisition date was about a week, 10 days earlier. So right around the same time, these all conditions, my definition, we offer this 50 centimeter resolution. So still excellent for these purposes. One thing to note is the sun azimuth angles coming from almost the exact opposite as the previous. And so the shadows on the western edge were able to be rectified. The sun's coming from the opposite angle. And the lights up with some of the shadows. And there's much more snow, so that wasn't helpful. There were some areas between these first two data sets where the snow and the shadow overlapped. And so I had these overlapping shadow features, overlapping snow features. And so I had to use a third data set to rectify those overlapping areas. But that middle data set did rectify. It had full coverage of the study area beforehand. So I rectified that. But on the far right, 2014 native imagery acquisition date was mid-August, 1 meter data. So that was able to rectify the overlapping shadow and snow. I did want to use 2016 native data because the resolution is 60 centimeters instead of 1 meter. However, it did not spatially align really with the Vermont orthos on the first two. So I didn't want to introduce any additional errors in the analysis. So I found the 2014 data spatially aligned much better. Next slide. So those are three imagery data sets that I was able to load into the software to analyze, as well as elevation data. The most important and critical for me was the NDSM, which is the normalized visual surface model, measure of height, not elevation, but height on ground. And so we're looking at here on the left, same snippet over the chin, part of the long trail, and directly on Sunset Ridge. The color ramp is from green to red. Farther, meaning the dark green values are the heights close to zero, yellows more intermediate heights, and a little red are the higher heights. So the features specifically that I was looking for are these high elevation features that have small heights. And so basically, we'll kind of carve out of the ridge lines, you see the ski trails as well, which gave me some trouble on very close to the ground, so the basically the ground. The middle here, DEM. We'll note that all of these were from the same LiDAR collector in 2014, the Vermont State LiDAR. All 70 centimeters, so again, very high res, which I was looking to use. And then I used ARC Pro to drive the slope layer. From the in the slope layer on the right, the color range is the same in that green values on the lower end, lower slopes, yellow is intermediate, and the red on the higher slopes. Next slide. So one of the things within Aurora Sensing to identify and delineate the features that you're looking for is to create an image interpretation key, which is both a visual and a written component. And so I'm showing here the visual component. What you do is you show your features of interest, and you're looking forward to delineate within different views of the imagery or elevation layers and write about ways that they're different from each other. And so the screenshots I have here in the top left is improved color imagery, so just your red, green, blue spectral bands. The top right is the color infrared, which is the infrared, red, and green color bands. And the bottom left is the NDVI, normalized difference segmentation index, which again is the relative measure of active photosynthetic activity. The color ramp on the bottom left image is from red to green. And red colors are lower and less photosynthetically active. Yellow is intermediate, and green are higher photosynthetic active features. And this is all from the Chittenden imagery on the highest resolution. You can still see some of that snow in the shadow up there. And the thing to highlight here, this is the bare rock features. So here in gray in the top left, here in cyan in the top right. The main delineator, we'll keep saying once this NDVI layer in the bottom left. And we'll see the feature. These are mainly dot polygons. Just want to make sure. clear about that. So just to highlight the features of interest. Here in red, meaning they're not vegetation, right? It's bare rock, so there's no vegetation around. So they have around the lower end of the spectrum. Next slide. Same exact set of imagery here. This is highlighting the Alpine vegetation, which appears brown in both the true color and the color infrared. And then going back to the bottom left, which I'll keep going to, the features appear yellow, so they're right around 0 intermediate values for the NDVI. So there's already a big difference there between the bare rock and the Alpine vegetation. Next slide. And then finally, the chromals appearing green, the top left, and the color, appearing magenta, and the top right, color infrared. And then once again, it appears green in the NDVI. So again, delineated with all three features of interest have different NDVI values, which makes sense because the rock is more barren, so it reflects less, reflects less bare infrared. The Alpine vegetation, because it's not considering leaf off still almost in the winter, it's less photosynthetically active than the evergreen trees, which are more photosynthetically active. Develop different values of the spectrum. So as far as the analysis, so within the cognition developer software, you create what's called a rule set, which is a set of logical statements that segment images, which breaks it up, which does image objects, or perform various functions, such as assigning your objects and classes, and then eventually exporting the JFile. And this is a high-level overview of my thought process and how I will actually derive the Alpine function. And my contact information will be at the end. I'm happy to send you this is the rule set yourself if you have any interest. But the way I approached it was to first of all identify the Tundra candidates. What I was trying to do is carve out kind of the ridge lines. Because I'm looking again for those higher elevations, shorter heights. And the way I did that was to by first isolating short objects. Short is first not a technical term, so the value I actually ended up arriving at was 2 meters. It took a while to get to that value, and probably one of the longest decision points. Where I got that from was the book, Woodland, Wetland, and Wildland, the Guide to Natural Communities of Vermont, which has very descriptive information about the chromals, which is the tallest feature I was looking at. In that book, it lists the chromals up to a few inches up to a few feet. And being on myself, that's I know that to be true. I translated a few feet to mean 1 meter because all my data was meters. And I increased the buffer to 2 meters because I wanted to err on the side of inclusion. I wanted to rather include maybe non-chromals features, but make sure I get all the chromals features instead of erring on omission. So I had my 2 meters. This did a really good job of carving out all the ridge lines, which you'll see later in the presentations. But one of the problems is it also carved out, because my study area was a big square around Mansfield, carved out a bunch of objects that were clearly away from ridge lines that weren't, obviously not Tundra. So I had to remove what I call the island objects, which were these lower elevations further away from the ridge lines. And so once I had that carved out, the feature along the ridge lines, I classified the features based on information I generated was often the image interpretation feed. This is where I had to translate everything I saw and wrote down from the image interpretation feed, figure out a way to translate that into software and write my statements to link, making sure it classified the features in the correct classes. So I put things up into the shadow and snow that you saw that had to be rectified, rock, the vegetation, and the chromals. And then moving down to rectifying features, as I mentioned, the other layers I had to use those to rectify the shadow in the snow. And there were a couple of things I didn't call mixed classes, where there was no really hard demarc line. When you create your image objects, you want them to be as large as possible, but as small as necessary so you can delineate between features. And so you can merge things back together and segment and break things up into smaller objects. And that's how I had to deal with these mixed classes, where at one size object it was harder to delineate, so I had to resegment into smaller and smaller objects until you don't want to get so small as to get back to the pixels. But the point of object-based analysis is to get away from the pixel-based analysis. But that was one of the challenges, is trying to delineate what's the hard demarc line and how do I rectify these mixed classes. And then finally, exporting the shapefile, and that's a straightforward rule where you just export the features of interest to a shapefile. Next slide. So just know, look at the outline initial features. These again are manually drawn polygons here. Just the 5 features of interest, including the rock, vegetation, the shadow, the snow, and the crumbles. And so these are the 5 features I assign my classes to, my objects into, as well as the mixed classes that they have, smaller objects. Next slide. So NDVI, as I mentioned, NDVI was a real critical delineator for me. And then what you see here, the formula up top, basically it's a normalized ratio of the reflection of the energy in the near-infrared band minus the energy, the reflected energy in the red band. Normalized meaning the values are always between -1 and 1. Values of 1 being higher, more active vegetation, more healthy vegetation. Values around 0, intermediate, and then values at on the lower end of the spectrum, no vegetation. And so what I've listed here in this graphic, these are not universally true values, but these ranges are directionally accurate. So the ranges themselves are specific to using this analysis, specific to Mansfield, which I did, specific to May 2nd, 2013, these specific lighting conditions. But they're not universally true, but they're directionally accurate in that. And these leaf-off conditions, the bare rock's always going to have, generally speaking, going to have a lower NDVI range in the Alpine vegetation in the middle, and the Alpine vegetation is generally going to have lower NDVI values than the normals. And I do see the mixed classes there, just highlighted those, whereas the ranges were a little harder to do. Next slide. So the results. So what you're looking at here on the left is the output shapefile to include the solid background with all other features. And on the right is the same shapefile overlaid on the best of the user base map. The color scheme is meant to replicate the colors of the imagery. And that bare rock is gray, Alpine vegetation, the crop is light dark brown, and then almost appears for a fourth screen and everything color the solid background. And so this is what I mean by the Tundra canvas. So this kind of carved out along the ridge lines. They start off as one object, and then I have to resegment that object and assign to the different classes to get the different features. And it's hard to tell, so it does a good job of capturing the ridge line, but it's really hard to tell how accurate or not accurate any of this is just by this image. So the best way to do it is to just take the shapefile and load it into your favorite chat software package and use any kind of swipe tool or swipe right tool to just go over the areas that you're interested in. I do have the next slide. The quantitative accuracy assessment as well as the qualitative assessment provides a better look at it. But overall, it does a good job of capturing the shape of the mountain. But we'll get into how well it captures the accuracy. So next slide. For an accuracy assessment, in most sense, you create reference points, which is shown on the far right here. It's a distribution of points, random points created in arc of row. Compare what your map says to what the ground truth is, and then create error matrix with the accuracy metrics, with the overall accuracy, user's accuracy, producer's accuracy. Same color scheme here. One thing to note, there are 624 total reference points. I decided to go with the equalized stratified random sampling approach, which means for each of the 4 classes, there's 156 points per class. Another good option to go with is just a regular stratified random sampling, non-equalized. The only problem is it weights the number of points based on the physical area of your study area. And so since the other features compose about 90% of my study area, it really takes away the value of that. So I just did the equalized, so 156 points per class. Next slide. So this is the quantitative error matrix, which compares each of the 156 points per class and what my map said and what the ground truth said. If you have a different set of accuracy points, numbers can be much higher, they can be much lower. The real takeaway on the far right, the user's accuracy column, and then on the bottom, the producer's accuracy row. The 2 metrics that I think are most important. The user's accuracy being a measure of errors of commission. So if you look at the user's accuracy bare rock row, about 67%. And that says when you're looking at my map, you're looking at a bare rock feature. My map says it's bare rock, about 67% likelihood that that's correct. Is that good? It's better than the 21% was below it. That 21% just shows that there's some confusion between the Alpine vegetation and the subalpine crumbles, which makes sense because they have somewhat similar NDVI values on the extremes of their range. And that goes up for the subalpine crumbles to 78%. That's a good value. I tend to disregard the values from the other, the 90%, because the area was so large, and I just threw out about 10 classes in one. It's not really too telling. And the producer's accuracy is a matter of omission errors, so kind of how much did I leave out? And so we're looking at air rock column at the bottom, about 79%. So for every 100 air rock features, my map captures 79. So this is 21%. And as I mentioned, a different set of reference points that are created much higher numbers, that are created much lower numbers. It is a good metric to see where you're somewhere in the right direction. But I don't take it as the universal, the map's totally wrong because there's a 21%, or the map's totally right because it was 70%. So, next slide. So as far as what I think is more useful, again, the most use is loading your GIS package, swipe back and forth and see what's what. But I have a series of 6 images for the different parts of the mountain going from Sunset Ridge all the way down to Maple Ridge. So, on the left, you have the best base map imagery. On the right is the same base map with the map overlay line shape file overlay on top of it. Same color scheme, bare rock showing gray, Alpine vegetation showing brown, and some Alpine column showing green. And the big takeaway, what usually stands out to me, is the distinctiveness and the size of the bare rock features. I think that's the easiest to tell what I got right or what I didn't get right. The Alpine vegetation is a little harder because the patches are much smaller, or sometimes harder to see on some of this imagery. And the crumbles is difficult because it's not always a clear delineation between where the tree line ends and the Alpine tree line starts. So next slide. And we're going further up Sunset Ridge. Again, the bare rocks tend to stick out a little bit in the shade. There's a couple more patches of Alpine vegetation in the top right here. One thing to note here, I did mention the 2 meters is my kind of decision point of what's considered subalpine crumbles and what's not. If you I did test 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 just to see what comes. And basically, the shape log here on the right, the buffer gets wider. So as you go from 2 meters up to 5 meters, the buffer widens, you lose more trees as they get taller as you go down the mountain. And going to half a meter to 1 meter, so it shrinks to the buffer. Next slide. The most visually striking for me personally and most fun to look at is the area around the chin, because there's a larger visible area of the Alpine vegetation. And you can see the distinctiveness of the rock trail, some of these rock features. And there's a lot of unique, larger patches of subalpine crumbles that are isolated on top of the mountain. And so for me, a good delineator to see how well or not well, I like to look at this. One, because that's the most visually pleasing to me, but it captures a lot of features and variation on the side, the shape, and the shape of them. Next slide. Tundra going south along the long trail, leading by the Cliff House, very similar to what we saw before. Some of the bigger patches of Alpine vegetation, again, most distinctly the bare rock features. When the crumbles, you can see some of the shadow here and like it's a little hard to tell with some of these vegetation patches because there's some movement on that snow and some of the shadow. So it's a little bit harder to tell. Next slide. Further south, bottom part along the long trail, you can see some parts on the very far right. I missed some rock features there. The way I developed this analysis, the mini cognition, I started with a small test on the chin and kept growing the test area. So the rule set, the rules in the rule set are all really based on the chin. So we kept growing it out and running up the study area. Then eventually run the algorithm of the full study area. So I tend to believe the area near the chin is the most accurate because that's where I really built the rule set around. Next slide. Finally, around the forehead, you can see in the left image the change between one imagery set to another, and from the chin imagery to the northwest Vermont imagery. But again, I think it does a good job capturing and the rock trail there, and the bigger patches of vegetation. Again, still some snow. Hard to tell what that middle patch is almost, but overall it shows a really good patch of the shape. So conclusion, just to recap some of the challenges. As I mentioned, the study area covered missing the area around the forehead, the shadow. That using different imagery data sets and different acquisition dates, which really means that the lighting conditions are different. And so I couldn't use the same values within calculations for the full set. So if the shadow was maybe something being less than 60, it was less than 50 or less than 40%. So just had to be cautious of you can't just use the same rules without thinking about what the effect is on it. The accuracy assessment, general guidelines, you want to use different imagery for your reference layer when you're doing an accuracy assessment. I did not follow that guideline because the best imagery I had at the time was all of these different analysis. And so the numbers, the quantitative accuracy assessment, could be skewed a little bit by that. And so worked with what data I had, but on the base mention. And then just a couple assumptions I made. Because the imagery and elevation acquisition date was between 2013 and 2014, I assumed there was negligible length or change or negligible drastic length or change between those time periods. And I did not attempt to delineate between the species of flowers or grasses within alpine vegetation because the other thing I would think a field work would be necessary to do something like that. So we didn't have 1 centimeter resolution or something like that might be able to help, but the best thing to have is 20 centimeters. Next slide. So data availability. So the data is up on the portal. It's published the last week, the week before. It's called ET data Mount Mansfield Alpine Tundra features. So within the search bar on the portal, if you type any combination of Mount Mansfield Alpine Tundra, those words pop up. It's you can download the metadata or link to the metadata and download the zip file. It contains all the files up here in the top left, all the files you need, or opening your reference shape file, you can get GIS package. The bottom left there, you target rule sets. It's not included in that zip file, but as I mentioned, my contact info is at the end of the presentation. I'm happy to send to you, if anyone is interested, so you can see clearly what I'm saying. A couple notes. It's a rather large file. It's a very small, relatively small area, but the feature count is 110 megabytes, and the index table is 80 megabytes, so there's 300,000 plus individual polygons. And that's due to just the high-res imagery I use. And so it might take a little while to render or load, just enough for that. So the whole zip file compressed is about 40 megs, uncompressed is about 190. While the data is in 92 state per lot. And the metadata itself is fully comprehensive. It provides much more detail than the stuff I'm going into today. So I try to be as fully as detailed as possible and as transparent as possible so that because this is somewhat a unique study area, the unique analysis, to make sure that everything I did was out there for you. Next slide. So a couple of acknowledgements. Jarlath, that was my advisor for this project, and without his time and expertise, I don't think I would have been as successful as I was. So big thanks to Jarlath. I do want to thank Tim and John for letting me present here. It's a perfect venue to present. And for posting the data, so there's that's our goal is to produce a tangible, usable data set, hopefully usable. And I want to thank the audience both here and on the net for listening. Hopefully it's maybe some of the unique analysis, hopefully you learn something. I think there's a lot of good lessons learned about Alpine Tundra, specifically here in the Northeast, specifically here for Vermont, but just in the Northeast in general. And next slide. And so just to bring it full circle to what I started with, on the left is the high-res chitin imagery. In the middle here is the LCD data. And my straightforward goal was to create a map that will better capture the size, shape, and spatial arrangement of the Tundra features. So that it's vector-based and not pixel-based. So I'm putting out big-based image analysis. And that's the snippet you see on the right. So they're compared to the national data sets. I think it's improvement. Obviously, the national data sets are not designed to analyze specifically specific states, even if it's a single mountain. And I think it's a great improvement. There's a lot of good lessons learned about this kind of Tundra analysis. Slide. So my contact info to the bottom left of the slide, feel free to call, email. I can talk about the project all day because I had some fun working on it. So I had a lot of fun with it. I'm happy to share any insights, troubles, things I had with it. And I'll stop there. If you have questions or discussion from the audience, I'm happy to hear anything. But I thank you for your attention and appreciate your time.
Cool. Thanks, Cale. I should add that Cale also, with our help, published this article on our Medium page, which is medium.com/VCGI. And you can find it just titled here, and it goes through more or less, if you need, the whole spiel, as well as links to share some of the imagery. So if you want to check that out, you can as well.